Alright guys, if you want to know where my head is at for 2024, just look at me right now. I should have gotten ready for this video, but if I'm completely honest, being very true to how I've been for the past 2.5 weeks, I have not really gotten ready. I wear the same 3 outfits. It consists of some form of hoodie and sweatpants. And my hair is usually in this weird bun thing, and I don't have makeup on, and that's how I've been looking here in California. In about 36 hours, I will be in New York City, or 48 hours, I'll be in New York City. Yeah, so this is what you're gonna get. If you're new here, I always start them off with a high-low buffalo. A high-low buffalo is a high, which is a good thing that happened in the past week, a low, which is a bad thing that happened, and a buffalo, which is something weird. So starting with the high is this bedroom here. Being able to be in my bedroom at home has been so nice, and I know it's such a random thing to be grateful for, but I had family staying over for the first 2 weeks, and so just this week I finally got my bedroom back. I got to lie down in my very own bed. I got to be alone for the first time in a really, really long time. And so I just laid down for like 2-3 days straight in my bed, and it was the best feeling ever. Also, I just realized I have a little mic. Look at this, guys. It sounds just as good as using my iPhone, which is usually what I do, with a sock covering the mic. But this, guys, is so cute, and thank you, Mikey, for getting me this for Christmas. Low is that I was super overstimulated and just overwhelmed by social media. It's one thing to go on it and scroll through it a million times, but it's another thing to have that and also be constantly thinking about, I could totally turn this moment into a video, or here's another idea for social media, or I should be posting, I haven't posted in a while. And that is always going on in my head. So I'm constantly thinking about, normal things with my job and living life and stuff. But on top of that, I scroll through social media and I'm thinking about what I could be creating for social media. So I was very overstimulated by it. And I was overstimulated by just constantly being on the computer for too much time. And that, I realized, was getting to me when I was spending time with some family. And I had nothing to do that day, but for some reason, I was just so antsy. And the entire time I was spending time with my cousins and playing with them, I was thinking to myself, oh my God, like, when do I need to get home? Like, what time is it? Or what time am I going to leave? When really I didn't have anything to do and I didn't have to leave. And I was having a good time, but I just couldn't lean into the moment. And so I was spazzing in my own head, trying to relax. When I had that moment of realization, I was like, oh my gosh, this is really, really bad. And I haven't taken a break from social media in a really long time. And so I did a full 1 week cleanse. I didn't tell anybody. I just kind of left so that I could take a break. And it was so nice. It was exactly what I needed. For the buffalo, and it might have been because I had so much time on my hands, but I also watched Gran Turismo, which is a movie that came out on Netflix. And it's about Formula One racing. It specifically follows one racer. I just happened to start watching it because my mom wanted to watch it. And then also, weirdly enough, a bunch of people kept bringing up racing in my life, just randomly. Where at work, someone would bring up racing, which never really happens. And because it was such a random topic, I looked up more about it. And there's this thing called Formula One. And I know me saying it that way sounds kind of stupid to a lot of people because they're like, yeah, duh, it's been there since like 1960s-ish. And I'm like, okay, great, but I just found out about it. And so this whole world just opened up to me last week, and I've been literally obsessed. Like, I've loved racing for a really long time since I was little, but it wasn't like enough for me to really get into it. And so I decided that Formula One is going to be my watching sport. And I know a lot of people watch football, soccer, but guys, I'm going to get into racing for my thing. And it starts in February. And I'm so excited. I have watched so much about it. I've read so much about it. I just am so interested in so much about it. Not just like who's racing, the placement, and who could win, things like that. But I'm really interested in like the engineering behind it and why the cars are made the way they're made. Yeah. And that's why it's a Buffalo. Now, on to the topic of the episode, which is what the hell is happening with 2024, how to make it your year without using resolutions, because I don't really believe in them. So I, like I said, don't believe in resolutions. Hot take. I know a lot of people like to make goals for themselves, which is great. The reason why I don't believe in them is because I don't think they work. And they don't work because everyone hypes it up and waits until the first of each year to say, okay, I'm going to meet this goal. When if you have that goal in mind and you've wanted to do it and it's like December 28th or November 15th, whatever day it is, you should just start it. Like make that your goal that day. You don't need the new year to be like, okay, now I'm going to start. And because you hype it up and you make it this huge thing, it becomes like this dopamine rush. You end up chasing this high that actually isn't permanent. The high and like the idea of having something new is really exciting. Like, don't get me wrong. I have my moments of like, I'm going to start this new project and oh my God, I'm so excited to start this project. But then when you really get into the weeds and things start to get more mundane and not as exciting, and it's not like a new project that you're working on, you start to lose the commitment. And that's why a lot of the times you have people going to the gym, which is so annoying, guys. This is like a really annoying time of year for working out, because I know that in the first month of the year, a crap ton of people have their resolution as gym more or get fit or get abs or blah, 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 which is great. But that also means that a crap ton of people show up to the gym and take up all the machines. And then I just give it 1 month and then everyone's gone. 50% of the people are no longer there. And I've seen it. This is my like third time seeing it. Not to be a hater towards anyone who sets goals, but that's just where my head's at. So the question is, how do you make the new year your year? How do you take advantage of it without riding that high? And for me, what I've been doing is using this one word technique or one mantra, one saying, one quote technique, where you just choose one word, one saying, and you have that be the thing that guides you and that you lean back on for anything that you do for the year. This is obviously super hard to do, to choose one, because there's a million things that you will want to do, a million things that I want to do. I'm not just like a very one-sided simple person, as you aren't, but by narrowing it down to one thing, you really could commit to one change and you will see the most growth and it will be the most satisfying thing in the long term. Instead of building up this high of like a peak in January and saying, I'm going to start all these things, and then over the year, you're going to kind of dwindle down. Instead, you just give yourself one thing and it becomes like your North Star for anything that you do. So I tried this out last year for the first time, and I saw this from many, many YouTubers, many self-help people, and I decided to try it last year to see if it actually works, and it did. Halfway through the year, I didn't start this in the beginning of the year because I happened to not find out about it until June, July-ish, and my word became people. I dedicated a lot of my time to spending time with the people I cared about, taking out people that I didn't want in my life. People just became my center focus, which is a really tough thing for me to do because I am so introverted. I lean towards the side of I love my own company. And so I made people my word last year, and it was pretty tough because sometimes I was like, I don't want to see anybody this week. I don't want to talk to people, even the closest people that I care about. I don't want to talk to them. And I just want to be on my own. But because my word became people and I was so committed to that one thing and it was so simple and clear, I was just like, no, like I'm going to cut that crap out and I'm going to spend time with this person. I'm going to check in on all these people that I would never have checked in on. And it was so fulfilling and it was so rewarding. And I knew that it worked out because I went through a phase of saying to myself, I really don't like people. And then I got to a point where it completely flipped because I started implementing the people phrase or word. It was such a strong rock and foundation in my life. If you could put all aspects of your life out into a board, for me, people was just so strong. Like I knew I had my family backing me up. I had a super strong friend group that I could always rely on and that would be there for me and that I loved so much and that filled me with so much happiness. And because I knew I felt so strongly in that area, I never had to worry about it. And with that realization, I was like, wow, that actually worked. The whole one word thing actually worked. And with this year, with that being said, I have a new word. And it's another word that starts with P. But I was going back and forth between two different words. So I was choosing between present and patience. And with the present word, I was thinking to myself, I want to be more in the moment. I want to be fully there in whatever I'm experiencing in life because my brain just never stops. I tend to not be fully there in any moment. I like 99.99% of my life am half there in a moment. I'm always thinking about something else, whether it is what I could be filming, a task that I need to do, even if it's not even relevant in the moment, and even if I can't do anything about it. For example, I ordered something. I'll be hanging out with a friend and I will have a thought in my head like, oh my God, I can't wait till the package comes. I wonder when it will come. Like I should check when it will come, which it does no good for me to be thinking about that because the package is going to come the exact same time, whether or not I think about it. Because I'm not fully there, sometimes I have conversations with people and I don't even know what I talked about, or I won't even realize that somebody asked me a question and I'll ask them the same exact question again, which is kind of crazy. But instead, what I ended up choosing was patience, with just how quick pace and overstimulated and rushed that the world makes everything out to be, and just how patience also encapsulates having to be present. I felt like patience was the word. I wanted to be able to finish projects this year. I want to be able to be okay with things being slower than they are supposed to be. I left college, which was extremely fast-paced because I happened to go to a college that had a quarter system. So, I mean, we crammed so much information every single week. We were constantly looking forward to the next test, the next assignment, the next quarter. There's always something to do. You would always be rewarded with some type of grade, and then you would have to move on to the next thing. And there's always something to chase. And then when I left from college and graduated, I realized that's not really how the real world works. A lot of things that happen in the real world take a long ass time. The good things, the most valuable, impactful things take really, really long. Just to move the smallest thing, to change the smallest thing takes forever. And you need to have that patience to see it through, or else it'll never happen. Even looking for a job, I thought it would happen overnight, that I could find another job in like a month. But then I realized that because the job market is so bad, it's going to take me months. And so it's been like maybe 9 months now of me thoroughly trying to find another job, consistently, diligently trying to find another job. And I was really stubborn and I fought back a lot against the process. But now I've gotten to the point where I've just accepted it. And it was a huge slap in the face because I hadn't had to have that much patience in my life. Super long-winded, but that is the focus. Hopefully that helps some of you guys out there to choose what word you want to focus on. And it's not just a word. You could also choose a mantra. For example, keep it simple if that's what you want to follow. It'll be very easy to stick to it and use that as a guiding principle whenever you're making tough decisions or wondering what to do next. The other thing that I replaced with resolution is just setting up habits. So technically, I'm not going to say there's not a bunch of things that I am doing differently this year because the new year has started. I'm doing a bunch of different things. I don't really stick to resolutions. Instead, I just make habits. I just think to myself what I want to do more of this year. So for example, I want to commit to not going on social media as much. And instead of saying that as a goal, I just start doing it. And I do this by just scheduling concrete time into every single day, every single week, whatever routine I need. And once I schedule it, it becomes second nature. So for example, every Tuesday, I'm not going to be on social media. I'm just going to delete it. And I put it on my calendar. So on my calendar right now, on Tuesdays, it says no SM. And because it's on my calendar, it's going to happen. Another one is to volunteer monthly for a nonprofit, consistently for one nonprofit, and do long-term volunteering, which is the most effective social impact that you can do, which is long-term commitment to some cause or some initiative or some group. It's better to do that instead of one-offs. And I just stuck to that. And I'm doing that by adding it onto my calendar. So I already booked out a week every single month, and it's already on my calendar. And so I'm not really thinking about it. It's just there. And so because I'm making all these things as concrete scheduled events in my calendar and in my day, I don't think about them as I need to reach this goal. I'm doing it already. That's also why I don't believe in resolutions. I just kind of do the thing. I just schedule it and I don't think about it. Hopefully that kind of makes sense, and you can kind of see how you can turn your resolutions into just things you do, into consistent habits. And once you turn into a consistent habit, you've done it. You're doing it. You're doing the thing that you wanted to do. And it no longer needs to be a goal and this big thing that you work towards. What you do every day, it defines who you actually are. You reaching towards something creates this weird gap of you're not there yet. You're not that person yet. But you can just start doing the thing. There's no deficiency there. Hopefully that makes sense. I'm trying to form this into words. And I just want to say, I know a lot of people get really hyped up for the new year, but if you're in the boat, the same boat as me, if we're on the same ship right now, then we're not that excited for the new year. I feel like as I've gotten older and older, I've been more concerned, more indifferent to every single new year. Maybe it's because I don't make it's such a big deal. With every new year, it's more terrifying. The night that it turned the first, I was really anxious, and I was thinking to myself, did I feel this way last year? And I remembered that I had posted a video about the new year, which is such a nice perk, by the way, of having a YouTube channel. It's just so much documented. And so I went back to my January 1st, 2023 YouTube video to see what I was saying and thinking about for the new year. And I was also terrified. So I think it's just a thing that's been happening because it's really real now with my 20s. There's a lot of pressure the world and I put on myself to have it together, to do more, to just make the most out of this time period, because people say this is one of the best times. You might not have that much money, but you love to spend the money. There's just so much excitement. A lot of things that aren't tying you down, like kids, a husband, a wife. And so you can do so much more during this time. And it's a lot of pressure and it makes me nervous. And so if you're feeling that way, you're really not alone, because I'm going to keep feeling this way, I think, for the next New Year's to come. I don't know if it's a coping mechanism for me to just not make the new year a big deal so that I don't freak out about the fact that I'm not where I want to be exactly, or where I thought I was going to be. But this is just kind of what I've been doing and feeling. To wrap up this really, really long podcast episode about introducing the new year, just preparing for the new year and just feelings about it, I'm going to talk a little bit about the past, some things that I learned from my 2023 year that I want to pass forward for the new year, that I want to continue, that I want to share with you guys if you guys haven't had those realizations or experiences, so that you can set yourself up better for the next year. Also, just some favorites, 2023 favorites. I didn't have that many from last year that I really wanted to talk about, and I feel like I did a really good job of doing thorough favorites with every single season of the year, so you should check those out if you want to see those. But I do have a really short list of very specific things that I really liked from 2023. So first is a newsletter that I have been reading so diligently. I have never been so loyal and consistent with reading a newsletter in my life. And it is the only email that I've actually consistently opened and look forward to, which is Mark's email newsletter. And Mark is, I forgot his last name, which is pretty bad, but I'll put it here. He, author of this book, he has a weekly newsletter where he teaches a new lesson. With that lesson, he requests his audience to do something about it, to actually put it into action, and then respond to his email newsletters with what they did and what they learned and their experience with putting it into action. And I freaking love that newsletter. It has been humbling and also heartwarming, just so many feelings to learn about something new, but also see people struggle with it and share very vulnerably their experience with trying to be better people and make the world a better place with that one lesson of the week. I even submitted my own response one time because it was super relevant that week. And yeah, I would highly recommend it. I will put it in the description. I'll put a lot of these things that I talk about in the description, by the way. The next thing that I recommend are 3 different books, and I did talk about them in my favorites, but seriously, these 3 books, if I could make a Bible for my life that I wanted to read every single day to kind of remind myself and orient myself towards certain thoughts and goals, I would read these 3 books. First is 4,000 Weeks by Oliver Burkeman. I've talked about it a million times, but it's basically a anti-time management book. And it will make you feel very, very human and realize our limitations, but how to maximize / appreciate those limitations and not run away from them. The next book is Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. Freaking love that book. If you are a creative person or somebody who wants to be more creative, I would highly recommend reading that book. It will help you feel very motivated and inspired, and that you can literally do anything in your life, and that you're meant to do anything that you want in your life. Like if you're having really bad internal self-talk and you're really putting yourself down, that book will really get you out of it. Highly recommend reading that. And finally, Little Prince by Saint-Exupéry. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but it is a children's book, yes, but it is packed with a ton of good lessons. It is an adult book disguised as a children's book. Yeah, it's a really heartwarming book. I've read it, I think 3 times now, and it still gets to me every single time. Lastly, 2 things that I recommend you guys try this year. First is, if you like oat milk and coffee, you guys have to try La Colombe's oat milk draft latte. And not just the regular one's okay. I prefer to have more flavors, so I like to add hazelnut or the salted caramel. There's other flavors you can add to it, but those are my 2 favorites. I highly recommend trying that latte out. It is made out of crack. It is literally so good. It's made out of heaven. It's an extremely creamy, flavorful. It has a lot of depth for a latte, and I love it so much. And also highly recommend that you guys commit to learning something new and following through with something that you're curious about, because this is something that has made me feel like there's so much more to the world. It has made me feel the world is bigger than it is. In my head, I got to a point where I felt like, oh my God, like I know enough already. There's nothing else new or exciting that I could care about. And that is a really tough place to be. For me, at least, the way I approached living throughout my day, I was just like, this is so mundane. This is so boring. Like, this is it. It wasn't until I just followed a trail of curiosity where any moment, like even if there's like a slight curiosity of like, why is this like this? Or how come da da da? Or when you just have a further question that you don't have the answer to about a specific topic, usually what will happen, what I used to do was I would just be like, oh, I wonder. And then I wouldn't follow up and be like, okay, whatever, like I'm not going to look it up. And it would just always be something I never know. But then if you just look it up and you try to answer that question that you had, it usually leads to more questions and links and hyperlinks. And then before you know it, you're on the weird side of YouTube and social media learning about this topic and realizing there's so much to learn about this area. And then it makes the world just feel so much bigger, because then you realize like, damn, I know nothing about this. If you're in a place where you don't feel lively and you don't feel like you're living anymore, I really recommend doing this. Reading something that is interesting. It doesn't have to be reading a book. It could be reading a newsletter or an article. It could be watching a documentary. It could be watching random YouTube videos about new things, subscribing to YouTubers that teach you about things you've never heard before. It keeps your brain just generally malleable and flexible, just makes you more interesting to other people. You have more things to say and more things to talk about with other people, and you can bounce more ideas with other people, and it leads you to learning more things and realizing that you are even smaller than you thought and that it's not actually that boring or mundane. And this just really came up specifically at the end of the month. I'm so thankful that I kind of like stumbled into doing this. It was literally F1. I learned so much about the build of a race car, and then I learned a lot about planes because I'm obsessed with planes. Apparently, I mean, I knew I've always wanted to fly a plane, but then I didn't realize I cared so much about planes, period. And so I learned a lot about planes and rockets and planes that have sonic boom, which have existed for a long time, and that used to be commercial planes that would literally take people and travel them out to different places. And it's been just super fun to learn about. I literally have apps on my phone now specifically to learn about these areas. Anyways, really, really long podcast that I didn't expect to be so long. But thank you guys so much for sticking with me. If you're still here listening, I'm really excited for all the new podcast and video ideas that I have for the new year. I have so many ideas that just came up out of nowhere, and I'm super duper excited to see them through and put them out there. And if you want to see what's coming up next, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell if you're watching this on YouTube. And if you are listening to this on my podcast, then don't forget to rate the podcast and follow it so that you are notified whenever a new episode comes out. And yeah, thanks for listening. Bye.